For thousands of years, we looked to the sky. We saw birds soaring on currents of air, their wings beating with a steady, powerful rhythm. A question formed in the human mind. Could we do that? Could we, too, join them in the great blue expanse? This ancient wonder sparked a quest that would span centuries. It began not with engines or sleek designs, but with a simple, direct imitation of nature. The first attempts to fly were born from watching. People saw wings flap, so they decided they must flap wings as well. This is where our journey from the ground to the clouds begins, a tale of how we went from flapping wings to flying giants. The earliest ideas were both strange and wonderful. They were mechanical dreams built from wood, cloth, boundless hope. Imagine a workshop in a time long past. A hopeful inventor pieces together a contraption, levers, gears, designed to mimic the intricate motion of a bird's wing. These ornithopters, as they were called, were often beautiful to look at, and our deep desire to break the bonds of gravity. But they were flawed. They flapped with great effort. But they did not lift. They clattered and strained. But they remained firmly on the ground. These machines were like birds with no life in their wings. Yet these failures were not an end. They were the first crucial steps. Each failed attempt was a lesson learned, a piece of the puzzle discovered. The inventors learned that human muscle alone was not enough to power flight. They learned that a simple flapping motion was far more complex than it appeared. The air, they found, was a subtle and powerful medium. It could not be conquered by brute force alone. It had to be understood. It had to be respected. These early, clumsy machines, though they never flew, taught us about the immense challenges ahead. They were the necessary stumbles before we could even think about walking. So, the dream persisted, passed down from one generation of thinkers to the next. It was a dream fueled by observation and a stubborn refusal to accept that the sky was forever beyond our reach. The image of the flapping wing became a symbol of this quest. It represented a direct, almost childlike approach to solving one of nature's greatest mysteries. While these early attempts may seem naive to us now, they contained the seed of everything that was to come. They were the first whispers of a conversation with the air, a conversation that would eventually lead to the roar of a jet engine. Then came two brothers from Ohio, Wilbur and Orville Wright. They were not wealthy aristocrats or famous scientists. They were bicycle makers. This background gave them a unique advantage: mechanics, balance, lightweight, strong structures. They were fascinated by birds. They noticed something others had overlooked. Birds twisted the tips of their wings to steer, to maintain balance. That twisting, warping, became their key breakthrough. Control was the single most important unsolved problem. The Wrights were methodical. They built kites, small gliders, to test ideas. Existing wing lift data proved unreliable, so they built their own wind tunnel. They used it to test hundreds of wing shapes, measuring lift and drag, making accurate aerodynamic tables. They were building the science of flight. After more than 1,000 test flights at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, they were ready for the next step. They needed an engine. Couldn't find a light, powerful one, so they designed and built one with Charlie Taylor. On the cold, windy morning of December 17, 1903, the engine sputtered to life. Propellers spun, the machine moved along its track, and lifted into the air for 12 seconds. That short flight changed the world. Not the longest, not the highest, but the first powered, heavier-than-air flight, and crucially, controlled. The Wright brothers had opened the door, and now the world rushed in, really fast. The decade after their first flight saw an explosion of progress. Early planes were fragile things, made of wood, wire, and fabric. They were often built in sheds, garages, by passionate hobbyists and daredevil pilots. Engines rapidly grew more powerful and reliable. Designers moved from pusher to the tractor design, propeller pulling the plane through the air. Flying was still a dangerous and thrilling spectacle, performed at air shows for amazed crowds. Soon, the materials of flight began to change. Wood and cloth had their limits: weather, stress, speed. Engineers turned to metal. Hugo Junkers pioneered all-metal aircraft. Stronger, more durable, more aerodynamically clean. This shift allowed larger, faster, safer airplanes that could carry more than a single pilot. The First World War acted as a powerful catalyst for aviation development. The airplane, once a novelty, became a weapon of war. Nations poured resources into faster fighters and larger bombers for long-range payloads. Engines became incredibly powerful. Biplanes with 2 wings gave way to sleek monoplanes with 1. Dogfights pushed pilots and machines to the limit, accelerating progress. When the war ended, the world had powerful new tech and trained pilots. Lessons shifted to civilian uses, mail then passengers. Routes began to span the globe. The transition from fragile wood to robust metal was complete. The airplane was becoming a transformative mode of transportation. The period between the 2 world wars, the 1920s, the 1930s, is often called the Golden Age of aviation. Flying shed its experimental image and became a symbol of glamour, adventure, modernity. Record-breaking flights captured imaginations. Charles Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic. Amelia Earhart became an international hero. These feats proved airplanes could be reliable and capable of long-distance travel. Small airports appeared near cities, and passenger air travel became a real, if expensive, option. This era brought the Douglas DC-3. Introduced in 1936, it was safe, reliable, and comfortable. Crucially, profitable, carrying passengers alone. The DC-3 is one of the most significant aircraft ever built. It made passenger air travel viable and popular, setting the stage for massive expansion. Then, once again, war intervened. World War II accelerated aviation at breathtaking pace, replacing earlier craft with machines of incredible power and speed. 4-engine bombers flew higher and farther with heavy loads. Fighters like the Spitfire and P-51 engaged in high-speed aerial combat. The war's biggest development was the jet engine. By war's end, the first jet fighters screamed through the skies, faster and higher than any prop plane. This new technology was a quantum leap. Engineers saw its civilian potential. Massive factories and large airfields were ready. The skies of war had forged tools that would create a new era of global connection in the skies of peace. The 1950s ushered in the jet age. The de Havilland Comet became the world's first commercial jetliner in 1952. Passengers were mesmerized. Flights were smooth and quiet, unlike rattling propeller planes. Jets flew above the weather with serene views. They were fast. Journeys that took a day now took hours. The Atlantic went from barrier to a pond you could cross between breakfast and dinner. American companies followed. Boeing 707, Douglas DC-8, larger, faster, longer range. They set the pattern of modern air travel. A global network of routes appeared. Flying became more accessible. The world felt smaller. Business boomed. Tourism exploded. Cultural exchange surged. But the biggest revolution was yet to come. In the late 1960s, Boeing took an immense gamble. Airlines needed lower cost per seat. The solution? A much bigger plane. The result? The Boeing 747, the original jumbo jet. It was staggeringly large, its tail as tall as a 6-story building. Its hump and wide-body cabin carried more than twice as many passengers as any previous jet. Entering service in 1970, it democratized air travel. The jumbo made flying affordable for the middle class. Overseas vacations became attainable. Families could reunite across continents. The 747 and other wide bodies that followed, McDonnell Douglas DC-10, Airbus A300, required longer runways, larger terminals, and more sophisticated air traffic control. The jumbo jet changed the airplane and the whole ecosystem of global travel. Today, we live in the world the jumbo jet created. We look up and see the contrails of giant aircraft tracing paths across the sky. These modern jets are marvels of engineering. They are built from lightweight composite materials, powered by incredibly efficient and relatively quiet engines. Inside the cockpit, pilots are assisted by sophisticated computers and fly-by-wire systems for safer, more precise flight. Flying is now one of the safest ways to travel, the result of a century of improvement and learning. Millions take to the skies every day on a carefully managed highway that links nearly every city on Earth. This constant flow has woven our world together, connecting businesses, reuniting families, sharing cultures once impossibly distant. The modern airliner is more than a machine, it is a vessel of connection. It has shaped our society, our economy, our understanding of the world, the fulfillment of an ancient dream. But the story of flight is far from over. The spirit that took us from flapping wings to flying giants lives on. Engineers are creating quieter engines, developing sustainable aviation fuels, and exploring electric and hydrogen power to reduce aviation's environmental impact. New designs like the blended wing body promise greater efficiency. The next chapter may be as revolutionary as the last. So, when you see a giant jetliner glide to a landing, think back to clumsy flapping wings, to brave pioneers, to methodical brothers who unlocked control. A story of curiosity, courage, and ingenuity.